Welcome to Willow Oak Asset Management's Value Hour. I'm Steven Kiel. With me today, as part of the Berkshire Hathaway Special Edition, is Scott Miller from Greenhaven Road. Scott, how are you?
My daughter says, "Is anyone doing great right now?"
We're doing the best we can. About the meeting itself, interesting meeting the other day. I'd love to hear right off the bat, maybe a couple of your takeaways.
I think I had two, basically. I think the first was I just missed the people, right? I don't know if you remember last year, we actually walked the floor together and went to See's Candy or whatever. And sort of all the stuff that's built up around the meeting in terms of the interesting people that congregate there. Obviously, that was, largely lost on Zoom. It's sort of a little bit on Twitter, but not the same. So I was kind of surprised how much I missed that, quite frankly. And then I think the other takeaway, it's more of a reminder, right? I think all of it is kind of a reminder, as most of it is fairly repetitive in nature, right? Berkshire didn't change that much from last year. Was effectively different. He's playing a different game than we are, right? If you look at the cash flow from operations for the quarter, it was almost $7 billion. Every business day he has $100 million to put to work. And so, the many of the types of investments we look at it's just not, it's not investable for him.
Yeah.
And so you can see how, the utility business, right, that requires tens of billions of dollars of capital and has what he sort of said kind of okay returns, right? Don't make a lot of sense for us, but for him, right, it solves the problem of where do I put, that solves months of cash flow for him.
Yeah, and he made the point, that Berkshire has transitioned into a stay rich type of company, not a get rich kind of company, a stay rich kind of company. And I was reading, I think Greg Abel made this point. It's $30 to $40 billion of reinvestment into Berkshire Hathaway Energy over the next 5 years, roughly. And where else, other than the railroads, other than the energy company, can you put that amount of money to work? And you're getting an 8% return, roughly, which is good, not great. It's good, but you can't do more than you can't do more than that, because you have to be fair to the customers, and these are regulated industries. But it gives an opportunity to put a lot of money to work.
Right. So if you think about it, his original partnership, right? He had a 6% hurdle rate.
Right.
As do I,
quite
frankly. And so he wouldn't be doing that in his original partnership. And he said if I had $5 million to manage, I'd be doing kind of different things. And that was just kind of hit home again for me.
Yeah, but if you think about it, though, if you're using some of the float from the insurance and you're getting a combined ratio of 95 or something, and you're making an 8% return, now you're at 13%, and then overhead for the other operations, but it's still an acceptable return. But again, not get rich company, it's a stay rich company. Going back to your comment about the camaraderie and doing everything in person, it seemed like Buffett really missed that party too, huh?
Yeah, he's the MC of the whole thing. I think it's where I took my daughter there a couple years ago, and it's just the way everyone lines up in the morning, and there's sort of a cult. There's a cult-like atmosphere that I imagine he's cultivated. He must enjoy it, right?
Yeah. What did you think of having Abel there and not Munger?
So for me, Munger's like the North Star. He's actually, I even like him better, if you're allowed to say that. I just did. And so I miss him, was what I would say. Not this past year, the year before, I went out to the Daily Journal meeting just to kind of get pure Munger.
Yeah.
So.
Well, he had the interview the week before. I don't know if you caught that. He made a couple of comments that might have been seen as a bit aggressive.
Right.
During that interview with CNBC. So at least we heard from him a little bit. But it also is interesting to hear from Greg Abel. Operations, he has operational detail, and he's willing to share it more so than Buffett and Munger do. And you can see what the next generation looks like. I was really impressed by the camaraderie that they seem to have. Any other thoughts about Abel being up there?
I guess I kind of two thoughts. One was, I was so impressed with how sort of with it Buffett is, right? How he has it all together. And then you hear Abel talk about all the nuances of the operations, and look, it makes sense. If you employ 400,000 people, like it's called the number 3 guy there or whatever, not surprisingly, he's really sharp, right? But yeah, I mean, he was impressive and added a layer of kind of depth that was helpful.
Yeah, and to your point about, the investable universe and how different it is from you and me and others who we consider colleagues, kind of across our field. Buffett had originally said he wanted to keep $20 billion in cash for any kind of contingencies. They're at, 137 billion, something like that in cash now. And, he referenced looking for a $50 billion, a $30 to $50 billion acquisition. That's really what moves the needle at this point. And so, I'd love to kind of hear you elaborate on your thoughts about when was he bearish, or was it just that those types of companies aren't out there at prices that he wants to pay? Does that have any influence at the things you and I look at, or other people who are looking for smaller companies?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's playing a different game, so I don't think there's that much kind of read across. I think, look, he's bearish, I think, in the short term on the economy. I think, I think probably like we both are, and I don't think most of my investment thesis is contingent upon a good April, right? Like nothing I'm buying right now is contingent upon that. I think it's interesting. I was listening to the TransDime call today, and they were talking about, they just raised a bunch of cash. People were like, are you going to do acquisitions? And they were like, basically like, we don't like to really buy fixer uppers. We like to buy pretty good businesses and make them great. And those aren't usually on sale in a pandemic or in a panic. And I mean, so I think there's a kind of a combination of the Fed stepped in and provided a lot of liquidity on the high yield side, right? And it's early, and I think the type of kind of higher quality business, may not be for sale right now. And so the types of things they did last time around, where they, provided some capital in exchange for warrants, et cetera, if the Fed hadn't stepped in, that may very well have happened. But I think he said he was glad. It makes sense. Like, look, we're all better off because they stepped in, I think, if you have a long bias here.
Yeah, and it's a good point. You and I can be selective. We can have maybe a view. Obviously we're all bottom up investors here, but we might have a view about the overall economy. We might have some cautiousness, but still find opportunities. We can be selective about specific companies. It's much more difficult for someone like Buffett to do with that size of a war chest. The TransDime comment might be a good segue into the airlines and his sale of the airlines. Any thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think it's really interesting because the airlines are one of those ones where everyone believes we're going to get back to normal at some point, right? So we've had viruses before, vaccine, et cetera, and he effectively said, look, I'm not going to underwrite the period of getting there because the destruction's too great in the airline industry. And so look, everything he said made sense. Didn't make me want to go long airlines, that's for sure. And I think there may be a couple of shorts. And so, like, I was on the TransDime call today trying to kind of figure out, like, TransDime is a business that will make it to the other side. They have the liquidity to do it, right? Now, what's the duration and kind of do you get paid for waiting is the question, which I'm kind of trying to figure out, quite frankly.
Yeah, interesting. And then, kind of last question here, just as a catch-all, at least there were some interesting things about the call. It's a different kind of meeting. It is, it's unique and interesting that the questions are obviously much more company specific, since you didn't have kind of some of the audience questions that you typically do. So it's, it's interesting to do that. But we also had some humor. We had Bill Murray had a question. We had a nice PowerPoint presentation and slide. So it was interesting to see some of those things. And his opening monologue, was unique to go for about an hour and a half about the historical elements there. It's good to hear. It's something that it almost seems like he was back to Professor Buffett. And, this is a monologue that we can replay 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Any final thoughts about the meeting, how it was different and in a way that, you might have actually enjoyed, even though
I like the fact that questions were questions and they weren't sort of personal statements that about people and whatever their agenda is, that were sort of loosely couched as questions. And so I found it basically much kind of more efficient and in depth because you didn't get the 5-minute detour of nonsense.
Absolutely. Okay, well, Scott. Great to see you. Great to talk to you. Look forward to doing it again. Best of luck in this investing environment. Scott Miller from Greenhaven Road. Thanks a lot.
Hopefully next year in person.
Absolutely.